And hello, welcome. Terry Brock here for Agorapreneurs Live, talking about a very important topic today of what happened yesterday. As we're recording this now, there was the Academy Awards last night. We saw an unusual thing happen where Will Smith came up and slapped Chris Rock. And it's the talk of water coolers around the world right now. And it has some major implications for living life as an agorapreneur with the live and let live philosophy that we talk about. And to do that effectively, I'm bringing in Gina Carr. She's my partner and person here that works with us at Agorapreneurs. Gina, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here and an interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what we saw, I think for those two people on the planet that don't know yet what had happened, we saw the Academy Awards and Chris Rock was the host. He said some things that were interpreted as disparaging against Will Smith's wife, Jada, and she has a condition known as alopecia.
Alopecia, I think,
Alopecia.
something
Oh,
like
that was
that.
the next thing I was going to say. Thank you, Gina. Alopecia. See why I keep her around? She helps me on these things. So he's saying that about her and made some kind of a derisive remark that was not good. And Will Smith initially laughed at it, but then apparently his anger was there. And understandably, someone disses your spouse, your partner, you're going to want to come back. Well, he went up to his friend. They've known each other for a long time and slapped him really hard. Well, some at first thought, well, it's some kind of a joke, is it? Yeah, because you never know. Both of these guys are good at that. And I have to say, before we even get into this, personally, I respect both of them greatly. They have brought me personally much joy. I love the videos they've all done, that both of them have done, their characters they play, the messages they get across. They've made me laugh, they've made me cry, they've made me think, and I appreciate that. And so we're talking about this and looking at the ramifications of what happened and how we should do it. Gina, what are your thoughts on everything that happened, what you've seen, what you've read, what we've watched on video and on the net?
Well, pa- part of me says, gosh, with all the super important things that are going on in the world right now, many tragedies and many very important issues that are happening and problems that are taking place in people's lives that maybe isn't the most important thing to be talking about, but I do recognize that this is something that's probably much more close to home for most of us. This is something that could happen to many of us, something like this, where we're going to be faced with emotions that are getting out of hand,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how do we handle it in a live and let live philosophy, which is what you and I ascribe to, based on our agorapreneurs philosophy. And so I see some people popping up in the chat, saying some things that
Yeah.
probably we're going to agree with. Let's keep a cliffhanger going there that we're going to talk about. But
Yeah, we
so I
got
said,
a comment right here. I'm just mentioning right here. Don't make jokes about people with real disease. I think that's important, and I would also agree with you on that, LinkedIn user. And I would also say, hey, don't make jokes about other people that could be disparaging, that could hurt them. And I think that's something we got to be careful of. Now, that's particularly for an individual that is in the audience. We've got to be careful. I know it's a very sensitive thing right now, and we can actually go too far with that because now many people are not going to college campuses because they might say something that is acceptable, but it slightly was talking about a group and the group gets upset. I think we've got to have a basic idea of we're going to take care of people and treat them properly. That seems to be the most appropriate. Gina, what are your thoughts on that?
yes, well, I think it's fundamental that society works better when people treat one another with respect and kindness and nonviolence.
Yep.
So, so for the cliffhanger there, yes, Terry and I, as part of our Live and Let Live philosophy, that is the foundation of the Agorapreneurs movement that we have created. We don't believe in initiating force. Now, take care of yourself. Yeah. Someone comes at you, someone's trying to harm you, defend yourself. Absolutely. But responding to words with physical force is not a good idea generally. and especially not when you're in front of the entire world, and it might have a negative effect on your entire career and business, but I can kind of understand, honestly.
Well, yeah, of course it was there, and we can now, looking back on it, say, "Well, they shouldn't have done that," and Will Smith should have just let it go and should have said something different. I saw a comment I wanna mention from, Yaakov, Markel that said something I think really, profound about that, but, we can look back right now, so we don't, diss, Will Smith or Chris Rock right now. We just think, "Okay, they're both good people. They're both good men, and there's some errors that were made, and we need to correct it," and I think that's how we look at it. Got another comment here that I see from looks like from Marvin. He says, "You never hit. You know, without me saying a word." Yeah, I think there's a good point to that of not hitting. I would say never initiate force or coercion because we could look at right now and what's going on. I mean, we're just getting really honest here and we're dealing with it. A philosophy is only good if it works in the real world. I admire the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, and many others that through the centuries embraced this philosophy. And a philosophy really is only good if it works in the real world, in the pragmatic, real nuts and bolts grit of the world. And so, right now, would we say you never hit if we were over in Ukraine? And we're getting shot at? Well, no, I would say they're doing the right thing and defending themselves over there. They have to do that. And I don't know, Marvin, if you wanted to make some further comment on that. Yeah, I think I would say you never initiate the force or coercion. And that is the key word there. If someone is saying nasty things to you, okay, you step back. And I remember growing up, we had the thing, Gina, do you remember this? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. You remember that one?
I do, and I don't think it's really true. I think words do
Oh,
harm, pretty significantly, and having, been at the brunt of some pretty harsh words over my years, it definitely affects and does a lot of harm, in fact.
yep,
So, I have a hard time telling people that, and yet crossing the line does include a physical force. Well, crossing the line does include verbal force as well. In fact, some people say, some experts say that the verbal abuse is worse on some people than the physical abuse. I don't know that I have suffered verbal abuse, but I have not suffered physical abuse, so I can't speak to that, but I have heard that. So,
yeah, I think you raise a good point, but I think also we have to look at, okay, I understand the old phrase, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me." Well, they can hurt you if you allow them to. Like, one thing that I thought of a while back, like, if I were to use, I speak a very little Russian, and I wanna learn more, but Gina, if I were to use some of the and I would never do this, you know me, I don't ever do this, but if I were to use terrible words and demeaning things to ta say to you, but I was using them in Russian that you didn't know, and I was saying them with a nice pleasant tone like this, chances are it wouldn't hurt you because you wouldn't understand it. And so I think in the same way, we can say, I'm not going to let those words harm me. I'm going to understand them and I'm going to just let them go. I have control over how I'm going to react. This is very stoic again. I can control how I'm going to react. Now, if someone is swinging their fists at you, they're shooting guns at you, they're shooting bombs at you, planes are coming in. Yeah, you grab your Stinger missile and you shoot them as the Ukrainians are doing right now. I mean, this is very contemporary. We're talking about it, and you're justified in doing that. You know, we don't wait until someone also shoots the gun. Ayn Rand told us this very well when she said, "You don't wait when the Nazis are massing and arming themselves on the border. You don't wait for bullets to come flying over to stop. Their armament, their movements that they took are initiation of force right there. And when someone initiates it, that's the start of where you can defend yourself." Gina, what are your thoughts?
well, yes, I definitely agree, and I'd love to know from folks out in the audience, those of you that are watching, please post in the chat if you've ever had an occasion when your emotions either got the best of you and you did something that you wished you hadn't, or that you almost did. Terry, how about you? I'm curious, have you ever had a situation where your emotions, got the best of you and you did something that you wish you hadn't?
Well, I want to answer that, and I will. But first, I want to show a comment that we have here from Dr. Raquel Rubin. Hello there, Dr. Raquel. Good to have you here with us. And peace starts within each one of us. I agree with that so strongly. It really starts with us. We control that. We can control how we react. You can't control the reactions of others, but you can control how you are going to react. And again, if they're just saying nasty words, it's really up to you. You can say, "Hey, I'm not gonna listen to that." Or you can get up and leave. You can get up and walk out, and sometimes that is a powerful statement to say, "I'm leaving, goodbye," and maybe a few colorful military expressions on the side. But you could tell them, "No, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not gonna let that bother me." And also, if you had, say, a small child who was 2 years old saying something bad, would you feel that child should be terribly punished? Well, of course not. No, but you would kind of put it aside and go, "Well, they're not doing well." Or maybe you saw someone who was just completely inebriated and they were falling over and they were saying things that were bad. You probably would say, most reasonable people would say, "Hey, come on, he's had a few too many. Let's let him sleep it off, or let's do something here. Make sure he doesn't harm anyone, including himself, but do something else." At least that's kind of seems to be the way makes most sense to me. But I think that peace starts within each one of us. What do you think, Gina?
Yes, I agree, and, back to the question of have you lost your, um, emotion? Have you gotten emotionally upset and lost control? I have a little story to share. I don't know that I've ever actually told you this one, Terry, but,
Oh, okay. Well, I'm all ears on
ah,
this then.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I did not physically harm anyone, but I remember one time being at a ski resort with my son, and we were trying to trade out some equipment, and they basically were telling me, you know, I had to go get the equipment before we could and bring it back in before we could trade out the equipment. My son was up on the slopes, what he was using, he shouldn't be using, he needed to trade it out. I was kind of in an impossible what I thought was an impossible situation. And it was a catch 22. I couldn't do what they were telling me to do. And so I was very frustrated. And shockingly, as much to me, I'm sure as to everyone else, I kind of burst out in a little emotional rant, and, I was very embarrassed. I was in front of some friends, and I just wish I had not done that,
Mhm.
and, I'm glad that my son wasn't there to see me, and that not many people that knew me were there to see me, but like, where did that come from? I really was upset and frustrated and, just didn't know what to do, but that's the only time I can think of, and I guess if that's the only time in my 60 how old am I now? 61 years? I guess that's not terrible.
Yeah, well, we'll give you a benefit of doubt on that, and it's understandable. Sometimes I think we can all admit there are times when people will do something or say something that can trigger our emotions and can make us want to be mad. No one can make you mad without your permission. It's not like someone makes you mad. You choose to be mad because of what they said. And if we hear some of those things they say about us or those that we love, or maybe it could be a political situation, yeah, it's understandable that you can be, but you can always choose how you're going to react. So we go to the situation with Will and Chris. Looking back now, hey, calmly, it's not us involved. We could say, well, Will Smith should have just smiled like he did, by the way, and kind of chuckle a little bit and just let it go and think, "Hey, I'm going to talk to Chris afterwards. We need to chat about this," because they were good. They're good friends, and they were able to talk about it. And I think that was the real key. I think it was Tyler Perry and Denzel Washington got Will Smith aside during a break, and the three of them were talking, and they helped to kind of console him a little bit in some of the situation. And Denzel Smith was also up for the Best Actor award with Will Smith. So they knew each other, they're friends, and they're both up for the same award. Yeah, that's a tense moment. One of those moments you remember in life. But I think what possibly could have been done, Gina, I'd love to get your reaction on this. I saw on Facebook a comment from my buddy Yakov Markle. And Yakov, you're watching this. Hello there, my friend. Thank you for sharing what you did. He said something that could have been done differently, that might have had a different reaction. And that would be Will Smith could have got up, walked up there, put his arm around Chris and kind of leaned away from the microphone and said, "Chris, My wife's been going through some real stuff with this disease. It's sensitive to her. She's very sensitive about it. You might not know about it, so that's okay, brother. But it would help if you could make an apology right now to her and to ease things a little bit. It's kind of tough right now. And in that way, just saying that, then Chris would have a chance to stand up and go, wow, just realized I said something I shouldn't have said. Did not mean any harm. Please forgive me, et cetera. Something like that appropriate. They're very good. Both of those gentlemen really know how to speak well and eloquently. They're trained at this. And they could have done that. And you think, okay, that could have diffused the situation, could have put an accent of positive on how to handle a difficult situation. And so I think something like that would be appropriate. Yakov, thank you so much, sir, for mentioning that. And I hope that helps many others too that are watching this live stream that we're doing here on Restream. A really nice way to get that out. Gina, what are your thoughts on what Yakov said?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant suggestion, and I'm kind of thinking that I bet Will Smith wishes he had done something like that instead of what he did. And but now that it's been done, what do you think are the best remedies? What can be done to salvage Will Smith's reputation? Any damage that might be done to his career? I haven't read any details except I've read a couple of headlines. Academy is considering what to do to discipline Will Smith or something like that. But what do you think would be if you were the press um, public relations expert who was consoling Will Smith or counseling Will Smith on this? What would you recommend?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. I'm a rank amateur, but I think it would be good to have a meeting where possibly a press conference where Will Smith and Chris Rock and Jada Smith, Will's wife, could be there and they could say, hey, here's what happened. We know it happened. You saw it, etc. And we apologize. We're sorry. We're friends. And sometimes we say things that we shouldn't have said. And let this be a lesson or a learning point for all of us. The lesson is we got to be careful on what we say and how we could offend someone without going to the extreme. This is the way that we have communication. This is why we have communication. We realize if you say, okay, you can't say anything negative ever about anyone, well, then that kind of limits communication completely. But if you go to the other extreme and you start saying very filthy things about other people because of their race or because of their gender or their sexual orientation or whatever else people will choose, that's wrong. That is very wrong, and we stand against it. Again, we go back to the agorapreneurs idea. And the agorapreneurs is the word, Gina, you and I made that up, sitting there at the table, kitchen table on a Sunday morning, and we thought agorapreneurs. Where did you come up with the idea for that? And that we both kind of looked at each other and go, yeah, that's it.
I'm not sure. It was something you were saying. I think you had just gotten off a call with someone and you were explaining your concept about Agora and how it fits into the live and let live lifestyle, how it's basically a shorthand for the live and let live lifestyle, and then how you love working with entrepreneurs and you are totally focused on helping people who are entrepreneurs or who want to be entrepreneurs to build their businesses and have a more free life. And it just came out. I was trained in by Sam Horn in her pop methodology, where she teaches you to take a one word and match it with another word, among other techniques that she uses for helping you come up with something unique and clever and something that will grab attention in a very crowded, noisy world. So agorapreneurs seem like a good fit for you, and I'm glad you liked it.
Oh yeah, it's excellent. So it is our made-up word, and if you look up agora, it's the idea of the Greek places where they would have open marketplaces and sharing. The whole point being everything was voluntary, peaceful, voluntary. That's the way to do it. And so we thought, well, peaceful, voluntary, embracing people who are entrepreneurs, where we say, hey, we're going to live and let live. We live our lives doing what we want to do, anything you want to do anything. I'm using that word carefully. As long as, number one, you take responsibility for what you're doing. Don't do something stupid and then tell us that we've got to pay for it or take care of you. And number two, you do not initiate force against others. You don't hit others. You don't hurt them. You don't take their stuff. And that is true on a one-on-one basis. It's true on a small group basis. We wouldn't have groups doing that. It's also true if a major corporation or a small corporation or a business comes and says, "Hey, we're going to hurt you. We're going to take this from you." That's wrong. It's wrong. And it's wrong if a government does it as well. Any human being do it because we're all human beings. I don't care what title you slap on or what kind of fancy building you're in. It's immoral to initiate force against others to hurt them. Now, again, if they're initiating force against you, you defend yourself. You have the moral right to do that. But this is the whole point of it. So I think that's good. I see another comment here, Gina, that came in. I want to share what we heard from Dr. Rubin again. They can use this opportunity to educate about alopecia. And I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it. That is one thing they could do. I could see a real strong case for doing that, to say, "Hey, this is what people go through who are suffering that." Now, of course, I joke a lot about my hair and the haircut I have, but I choose to shave my head because I was losing some hair, and I thought, "Yeah, I'm just gonna go with this," and I enjoy it. That's a choice that I've made. But I understand others who have this disease. It's a debilitating thing, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed. And I have to agree with you, Dr. Raquel. That would be a good opportunity to help people understand it, to maybe do some fundraising for that organization. I don't know. I'm just thinking some that, and I would take it even further to say people that are suffering from other diseases or other maladies, other things that are there, to make fun of someone because they're going through a disease. No, that's not cool at all. But I think that we have to address it as mature adults and realize what it is. Another thing I want to raise, though, Gina, you had mentioned something earlier today. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here, that people were talking about this incident earlier this morning in a group where you were, and you thought, "Hey, we should talk about something more important." But my feeling was, this is very important. This is more important than discussing what shenanigans some politician did or some stupid thing that those yahoos up in Washington did, or whether they're in Washington or London or Ottawa or Canberra or wherever they are. Hey, it's most important how we do this. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely don't think it's more important. I do not think that Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars is more important than the major global atrocities that are going on right
Understood.
now and the missteps by politicians and the closeness that we are with World War III because of some major things that are going on. However, I do agree that it's more relevant to most people's lives. It's more applicable to most people's lives. It's something that people can do something about. I've talked with you about this a number of times before,
Mhm.
and I know that you believe it's good to think about these things and plan. You you want to plan for something that might happen. And while you're not likely to be making a decision about whether to send MiGs to Ukraine or whether to have a sit down with Zelensky or Putin or whatever other big decisions are going on, or how to change the price of oil or food or the food shortage, all these things, well, you can think about, if I were really upset and somebody said something ugly like that to one of my loved ones, or made a joke like that in front of the whole world, how would I handle it?
Hmm.
And it is in front of the whole world nowadays, with people having just their own smartphones that they can post something that goes viral.
Yep.
Imagine that someone had posted something ugly about your loved one on TikTok, it went viral, and you're left, well, how do I handle this? What do I do? Do I go to their page or their account or underneath that video and say something nasty? How do I deal with that? So I think that's one of the things to be thinking about.
Yeah, I think that this we can take as an opportunity. So the lessons for us: prepare in advance. We don't know the exact situation, but think about how you would react in the event someone's ridiculing you or a loved one or someone you care about very much so. And they're doing that publicly in a very unfavorable way, in a very despicable way. How are you going to react? What it would be appropriate? And I think one thing we can say is it would not be appropriate to embrace violence, to embrace physical force. As much as I love Will Smith, I'd have to say you did the wrong thing. Did the wrong thing in slapping. That's not cool. And there, other things would have been better. Got another comment here from Kathy, excuse me, Kathy, saying, "What if Chris Rock took the first step?" I think that could be good for Chris to say, "Hey, I really messed up on that." Or he might use some more colorful language, but just, "Yeah, I messed up on it. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. And I think the three of them, Will and Jada and Chris getting together, they might have already just in private as the friends that they are and saying, hey, what can we do about this? What can we do to make this a better situation? And I think that's good. So thank you, Kathy, for mentioning that. And Kathy's other comment here was inappropriateness. I don't know exactly what you mean on that, Kathy. And so if you want to give us another comment and let us know more, but I can think that it is inappropriate to do certain types of things. Gina, what are your thoughts on inappropriateness?
Yes, she was commenting when we were discussing whether this was relevant or important. I think that that's where that was coming in. So thank you, Kathy, for jumping in on that. I bet you have some thoughts on this because, well, Kathy happens to be an expert in the field of divorce, helping
Mhm.
people get through divorce. So she's, I'm sure, counseled a lot of people who have been through some ugliness from two spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, who knows what. And so she's probably had to provide a lot of counsel. So, Kathy, if you care to share any of your thoughts on that in the chat, that would be wonderful. Yes, for Chris to state it was Yes, for Chris to state that it was inappropriate for him to say what he said, Kathy, I think that'd be a great first step. And then for Will Smith to state that it was appropriate for what he did. And yeah, like to Terry's point, I would just love to see them have one big love fest. Terry's mentioned a number of times that they were friends. I don't know. I haven't done the research. I think it's clear they were acquaintances. I read that Chris Rock had been on Will Smith's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air show back in the 90s. And in 2016, when Chris Rock was hosting the Oscars, he made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith and Chris Rock, or Jada, I guess, directly. Anyway, I think at that time they both just kind of laughed it off and said, "That's it is what it is," and I'm definitely paraphrasing there. So I think there's some blood that goes back there. I don't know that it would be good blood or bad blood, but I think there's some friction. So I'm not sure that that I would call them friends. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know them personally, but I'm thinking they likely could be in that they've done a lot together, they know each other and all that, but I think it would be good for Chris to say, "Hey, what I said was inappropriate." I mean, that makes a lot of sense to say that, and I think that's a tool that we can use to just disarm a lot of hostility to say, "Hey, I was wrong." And I think that's the sign of an intelligent person, someone who has character, to stand up and say, when I said that, I should not have done it. I should have said something different." Or just don't say that. There's lots of other things you can do for a joke. Chris Rock is a brilliant comedian, and his way he comes up with things that are funny, I think I've admired that through the years, and I've enjoyed watching some of his comedy routines and what he does. So he could have said something else, and excuse me, he could have come up with something that would have been a little more appropriate. So I think the lesson for us to answer our question on this is, okay, we got to first of all realize these things are going to happen from time to time, and sometimes they happen when you're not ready for it. So you've got to have that preconditioned mind that says this is how we're going to handle it in that event, and never get upset. Jenny, you asked me once, would I have I ever gotten upset and fearful and mad and stuff? Not really. Maybe a couple of times, but I've never ever used physical force on that. I've just been trained. I'm very grateful to my parents. They got me into Kodokan Judo when I was 12 years old. And I was really learning from that. It helped me a lot as a kid growing up. And that really helped me to learn what to do and what not to do. And I remember there were a couple of times that judo came in handy because I was able to fend off a potential attack without getting upset. You just don't get upset, you don't get irritated, and that helped a lot. I think that's good. Now, Kathy has another thing here. I think real good sincere apologies can be very powerful, but they have to be sincere. Boy, isn't that the truth? Kathy, you are so right. If it's a sincere apology, then it will be sincere. I think that's important because it's going to be something that you can tell. And if someone's going, yeah, 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 I'm sorry, or I'm sorry you feel that way. Well, that's not saying anything about me. If I say, I'm sorry I did that, I should not have done that. That's a whole different thing than, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Ooh, that's not what we would consider sincere, I think, in most cases. And I think that that's where we've got to look at it and say, all right, you want to reach people as a human being and try to see, here's a concept, see it from their point of view. We're in our own minds. I did this. I'm doing that. I'm doing this. We need to stop and think, wait a minute. How are you feeling on this? What are you going through? I'm sorry. I did not mean to hurt you where you are. I didn't want you to go through that. What are you going through right now? What are your thoughts going through your head at this moment? What can I do to help? What can I do to remedy that? So, Kathy, I agree with you completely. That really applies in many, many different ways, and what to do and how to do it. We even have a comment here, Gina, from Gina Carr, replying to Kathy. Agreed. Yes, indeed. Thank you for putting that in there. Wow, we get a comment from the host here as well, from the guest who's with us. Well, anyway, I think it's a momentous time, and I think it is important. I understand. Yes, it's important what's happening internationally. We're acutely aware of what's going on in the world. We see that. We're reading the paper. We don't watch TV because I got rid of TVs 10 years ago. Actually, more than that, probably I think about 11 or 12. I got rid of TVs. Don't watch that because of all the drama of dun dun dun. This breaking news just in. Terrible things happening over here. Well, I can't do anything about that, but I do need to be aware of it. So I find through print that I can get on the net from a variety of different sources helps me a lot. And for me, that's a good way to do it. So I think that's really, really a good thing to do.
Well, I agree, and I'm glad that you suggested we cover this topic today. And thank you so much to all of you who are watching and who have commented. We really appreciate what you have to say and your participation in our event today. And we'd love to hear from you. What topics would you like us to cover when you think about the concept of live and let live as a philosophy for running your life? What questions do you have? What circumstances have you been in where you've come away saying, I did this, but maybe I was wondering, I didn't really know. I didn't have someone to ask about that who maybe had that sort of philosophy and wanted to put more peace into the world. Terry and I, two of our favorite words are freedom and peace. And certainly I believe that prosperity leads to more freedom, more freedom leads to more peace. And so I'm all for putting all of those, more of those into the world. How about you, Terry?
Yeah, I think that's the key. Freedom and peace, peaceful living. The idea of, I think Leonard Reed said it very well. He was a founder of an organization called the Foundation for Economic Education. And he said, life can be lived 3 words: anything that's peaceful. And I think that's a good way to live. Is this a good thing to do? Is that a bad thing to do? Is this a right thing to do? What should I do here? Anything that's peaceful, I think, is a good basis on which to build our lives and to say, okay, here's the filter. And I look at live and let live is really the filter we can live our lives by. You got an issue come up. How should this be handled? This, by the way, applies in politics. I see when you have politics, they have this person or that person. Too often we get into looking at the person rather than the principle. And I think we have to look at the principle. What is the right thing to do here? And rather than saying, I don't like her because she does, I don't like him because at the end of the day, I don't like, oh, I really like him because of the way he does this, or I like her the way she does. No, focus on the principles. Focus on, is this a good principle that helps us live life better? And the principle is live and let live. Is it allowing others to live the life the way they want? Again, as long as they're not harming someone else, they're not initiating force or coercion, you let them live, even if they're doing something that we look at and go, ooh, oh, that's kind of goofy and weird. Wow. Well, that's okay. That's their goofy and weird. They want to do it. Not a problem at all. Let people do what they want to do. Be more tolerant, be more accepting. I think when we are more inclusive, bringing in other people, people who have a diverse idea than we do, diverse mindset, diversity culture, we learn more. Our lives become richer that way. And it's not a matter of something we should do. No, it's a matter of you get to do. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do that. And it's very peaceful living. So anyway, that's what we talk about at Agorapreneurs. Hey, a little plug here. If you want to see some of that, go on over to YouTube. Take a look at some of the videos we produced there. Agorapreneurs with Terry Brock. That's Agora, Agora, and the preneurs like in entrepreneurs. So Preneurs, Agorapreneurs, our word that we made up. We'd love to hear from you. And by the way, many of you we know are going to be catching this on recording. We're doing this live right now. Many of you are going to be watching this in the recording. It's the beauty of these tools we have, these platforms. And we're using this tool right now called Restream. Restream is a fabulous tool. So we're getting people, I'm just seeing right now, from LinkedIn, from Facebook, and from YouTube coming in from many different places. And isn't it nice we bring the family together? The family of all people, even though we're on different kinds of platforms, we can do that because of Restream. Restream gives us the ability to go to up to 30 different platforms at the same time. As I like to say, you can go to them not only at the same time, but also simultaneously. Woo-hoo. And so you put that in there. I know, work with me on this, okay? But you can do this with Restream. It's good. Well, it's an important lesson. What we saw yesterday is something we're going to remember for a while. It will be one of the events of the year. And the idea of the lessons for us at Will Smith, Chris Rock, and Jada Smith, we wish all three of them the very best. We want good to happen for all of them. And we want this to be something that can help people maybe to live their lives a little more peacefully, to be able to maybe we hold our tongue a little bit. And also, maybe we don't react so quickly in the moment, thinking, okay, I've got to do this to defend someone's honor. Maybe we take something else and do it in a different way. I've got a comment here I want to look at before we say goodbye. Let go came in from Marvin Willis. I was a Marine. Well, Semper Fi Marine, and definitely believe in defense, but hitting out of anger only makes you look small minded. Absolutely. I agree. There are better ways to handle your emotions. Sir, I am high five. Get your hand up there, wherever you are, Marvin. I'm high fiving you across the mile, sir. That is really important. I'm in full agreement with you that, yeah, you're a Marine. Hey, Marines are taught that. My uncle was a Marine. He served at Okinawa. Talked about being on the, oh, well, I think he was on the USS North Carolina, which was stationed there at that time, and fought in that. And he saw the blood in the water. And he was telling us about that, and really bad thing. But the Marines, the discipline that you have and that you go through for that, we admire you for that. And I think we can learn a lot about discipline, about not hitting out in anger, as you say there, Marvin, because it only makes you look small minded. It really does. It feels good in the moment. I'm going to hit them. I'm going to, and we all have that. That's natural. But the better person says, wait a minute, let me step back here. I'm not going to hit. I'm not going to initiate force. They haven't done that. Okay. Again, we're in a situation where they're just saying words. Maybe they're screaming. Hey, that's another thing too. That's tough. But you do not initiate force or coercion. What you might do is walk away. What you might do is just say, hey, I'm out of here. Goodbye. When you've decided to stop screaming, you let me know and we'll talk again. Okay. Something like that. You're not harming anyone physically. And I think that there are better ways to handle your emotions, controlling those, and going with live and let live makes all the sense in the world. As Gina puts in here, there, live and let live. Gina, on that note, we'll say goodbye. Any final words you want to add before we, whoops, I just hit Marvin's thing there again. Let me pull that out of there. Whoop, I'm hitting the wrong ones when I get loose, clicking too many buttons here. But Gina, before we say goodbye, any final words you want to leave the folks with? And
I
Gina,
just
looks like
think
you're
it's
frozen.
keep your emotions.
There, now you're back, Gina. You were frozen there for a moment. And it looks like you're frozen again, Gina. Something must be
Work hard to
going
keep
on
your
with your
emotions
computer.
in check. Any Okay,
Okay,
go ahead and
Gina,
wrap
I
up
think
then.
you're there. Something's wrong. Something's clogging up on your computer. I'd say we need to figure that out and fix it. But Gina, seriously, I appreciate you joining us here, being with us on this, and your thoughts. And yes, those that know us, know that we're a business partner, life partner, and my fiance. I'm glad to have you with me there for that, and I appreciate your insights that you have. Looks like it might be working right now. Try it again for any last words you might have.
Oh, I just want to say thank you again to those who are listening. And I do see a really good comment from Kathy Beatty. So if you would just post that to Terry so that as we go out, we do
Yes.
recognize her. So I think that's important. Be curious, ask questions afterward for better understanding. Absolutely. Uh, Certainly being curious, asking questions. I know that's something that you value a great deal, Terry. I do as well. And so thank you guys so much for joining us. And we look forward to sharing with you again and hearing from you about what you'd like to know about the Agorapreneurs Live and Let Live philosophy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gina. And Kathy, thank you for that comment. I think that's really, really important and the way that we look at it. And so, as we're saying goodbye here, think about this. Let's use this as an opportunity to become a better person. And hey, think about it. There's a great thing to do. Whatever happens, use it as an opportunity to become more of the ideal person that you want to be. Let living your life peacefully, voluntarily, not initiating force and coercion against others be your way of living and what you're going to do in life. I'm Terry Brock, and on behalf of all of us here at Agorapreneurs, thank you for joining